Hi everyone, we're back with the second video of the paper 2020 October, Unit 4. So last time we stopped from the question 2, Part A. So this is Part B. If you want, you can pause the video and read the question. So they've given us this format of a report, and you can see there are some data needed to fill this report. But before we create the report, they want us to create a query that will extract the data that Anne needs from the database. So I'll be doing this query question now. So these are all the queries that we have created so far, and we also created all the tables. So the normal steps that we follow to create a query is we go to create, and we go to query design. And now they show us these tables, and we should decide which tables we would need depending on the data that they want us to create the report from. So if we go back to the question paper, we can see that we will need the trainers' names, the types of skills, the cyclist name, and that's pretty much it. Okay. So let's go back to the database. So now I'll put in all the tables that I have created. And now I've told you, considering the cyclist, we need their full name. So in that case, if we look at the cyclist table, the first name and surname are in two different fields. So when you put them as two different fields, when you create the report, it will be very hard when it comes to adjusting the names and the positioning. Basically, the design of the report will be hard to create. So I'll be putting first name and surname um, as one field. So how do I do that? Here in the field, I'll type full name, and then I'll put a colon. Do you guys remember in one of the previous videos, I told you guys how we can mention a field in a query design when we put the fields here, right? So that is within a square bracket. And inside the square bracket, you can only type one field name. So the field is first name and last name. So I'll first put first name. Make sure to type it the exact same way that it is here. And then I'll come out, I'll put another square bracket and put surname. But if you look at this, it will put the first name and surname together without no space in the middle. So in between the two square brackets, I'll put a plus sign. When you type the whole field name, this is what it should look like. Full name, colon, then in square brackets, you put the two field names. And to make sure that there's a space, I put two plus signs. And then in the middle, this is a space. All right, and then you should mention from what table you'll be taking this, and that is table cyclist. So what are the next fields that we'll be needing? We'll also be needing the skill, but there is no way that we'll refer to the skills of a certain cyclist without the skill ID, because that's what links into the cyclist skill table as a foreign key. So we'll add skill ID and skill. Why we're doing this exactly is because if you read the question, um, Anne would like to know the names of the cyclists who achieved beginner level but did not achieve intermediate level. So there's a specific group, so it's not all the cyclists. So here what we should do next is we should specify which skills. So in my previous video, I showed you guys a scenario, and in that scenario, if you remember, they also told us the certain levels that a person should achieve in order um, to pass a certain stage, like a beginner stage or intermediate stage. So in that case, if we go back to the scenario, which is this is intermediate level 1 to 13, this is beginner level 1 to 5. So the criteria would be, according to the scenario, it should be between 6 and 13. So instead of typing between and toss, I prefer to put it using mathematical symbols. So here under skill ID to under criteria, I will be typing less than 14, which will be 1 to 13. And I must also mention that it should be from 6 onwards. So I'll put n greater than 5. Hope all of you guys understood. So this is the criteria where we will be telling them that this is cyclists who have achieved beginner level but not intermediate. So they also mentioned that the cyclist has already achieved beginner level. So we can put this field level achieved and put criteria beginner. There you go. Now we did mention which category of people that we wanted. It was people who have not achieved this range of skills. So now we need to specify whether they have achieved the skill or not achieved the skill. So for that, if you remember, we used the yes no type of data, which is this. I'll put that, and in the criteria, I'll put no. Don't add any double quotes here, because then it'll identify this value as a text or a string value, which will not give you the proper output that you will want it to give you. And then we also needed the trainer name, so I'll take that from here. So this is all the data that we will be needing. So now save your query. I'll be putting question. What I mean by Q is question to B. part 1. Alright, so let's run this. And these are the people who have not achieved the skills between 6 and 13. So now you will understand when you look at these data that some people records have been repeated for some people. So that's where we need the report design we need to focus on the report design so that they won't be repeated. And that will be in another video. So now that we have created the query, let's move on to the next question. All right, so this is question 2B2, which is extract. So using the query that we've designed, we have to create the report. And I'll move on to the next question where it is also to create a query and needs to know the percentage of cyclists who have achieved each advanced level skill. Create a query that will do this. Assume for any calculations that 60 cyclists are attempting to achieve each skill. Okay, so you need to screen print your query design in design view. Oh, right. In the previous query, we couldn't take our screen print, and that should be in design view. Put these tables up here so they're closer. And I can bring this up here. And now I'll take the screen print. Then my candidate template, I'll paste it here. Like that. Alright, so now let's move on to the question that we were talking about, which was creating a query to take percentages of cyclists. So let's go back to our database. I'll close this for now. Then I'll go create query design. So for this question, we won't be needing all the tables. It's only going to be the cyclist table, skill table, and the cyclist skill table. So that's it. And first off, because we're taking percentages of a certain number of cyclists who have achieved a specific skill, we'll be putting skill ID. And now, because we're going to be calculating a percentage, we'll be using, when putting the criteria here and sort, we'll be using this totals over here. So then it will become group by, and the criteria should be greater than 13. So now I have added two fields. One has the skill ID. So it'll, when in the total, when you say group by, it'll, so for example, if there are if the same skill ID is reported in two records, it'll show as one record instead of two. So here, because it adds up all the skill IDs which are the same, I would need a count of these records. So this count is what will tell me how many records had the same um, ID. All right. So now let's add the third field. So now I've added my third field as well. And percentage of cyclist achieved skills. So this is the number, the amount of cyclists, the percentage of the cyclists who have achieved that specific skill, which we have taken, which is from 14 to 19. And this I have set it to an expression. So it will refer to this, which is the expression. So number of cyclists of skill, which is this field, and if you can see, it's within square brackets, the number of cyclists of skill, that's within square brackets, and then it's divided by 60 and multiplied by 100. So this is what it will actually look like, the field name, and this is the expression. So because we first want to divide it by 60, I put it within normal brackets and then asterisk 100. Let's go back to this. And if we go to our datasheet view, okay, this is kind of wrong because it cannot be 60 and the percentage of achieving the skill cannot be 100% for everyone. All right, so were you guys able to think of what went wrong? Actually, we did specify what the skills are. We've used count and expression and so on. We have done the hard part, but we didn't specify whether they have achieved the skill or not. So here we had this Boolean field, which was an yes/no field, saying whether they had achieved the skill or not. So in this case, we are considering everybody who has achieved the skills and who has not achieved the skills. So we need to specify that it is the people who have achieved the skills. So I'll be putting this, and criteria is yes. So now if we go to this, there you go. So because we only want the percentages, um, we don't have to show this field. So I'll untick this. And now that gives us the proper percentages like that. So now let's take a screen print of the design view. So I'll put this back up here. I'll make this smaller so screen print will be smaller as well. Right. Before you take the screen print, make sure to give your query a name. So in that case, I'll give question 3. Question 3A. Okay. And now take the screen print. Now if I take my candidate template, I'll paste it here, like that. So if we go back to the paper, next question is a report. Okay, this is a chart. Question 4 is also a form, and question 5 is an analysis question. So to do this analysis question, it's pretty difficult without doing all those forms and reports. So if you guys remember, I did leave another analysis question in the first big question, this part C question. So if you want, pause the video and read it, and then we'll discuss what we should write for the 9 marks. Okay, so I'm guessing you're done taking a screen print and you have read the question. So when they've given you an analysis question, you need to focus on the primary keys, the foreign keys, how it is related, and in this case, it is in order to achieve a certain task. So think of the easiest possible way and the most effective possible way to achieving this task. Okay, so when you're reading the question, if you do not remember the table or how the data has been entered, the data types or whatnot, you always go back to your database and refer to this table. Okay, so if I go back to my database, which is this, so now I'll close this because I'm done with it. And the question is referring to the trainers. She wants to send an email to the trainer using their primary email address, their first name, and then telephone a trainer as and when required. So the basic data types that we'll be needing is the email address, the primary email address, their first name, and their telephone number. So we need 3 data. And in table trainer, so this is the information. So first you can see there's trainer ID, there's trainer name. So when you look at these data, look from one record to record. So first one, we see 2 names. In the second record, it's just 1 name. And then when you come to the 8th record, it looks like we can figure out that it's 2 names, but at the same time, there's no space or anything. So there's a problem. So try to analyze by yourselves, and I'll tell you after analyzing everything. And then they wanted us to refer to the trainer's primary email. So in the first record, it does mention which one the primary one is. Second record also it does. But in the other records, I don't see any email mentioned as primary in the other trainers. And also some trainers, they haven't even mentioned their email address. So now analyze in your head what needs to be done and how can this be more structured. And she also wanted the telephone numbers. If you can see, some do look like telephone numbers, some don't look like telephone numbers, some haven't entered their telephone number. So think of what can be done to reduce data anomalies, repetitions, data redundancies, and so on. Okay. So now, so a trainer obviously has one name as in it's a first name and a surname. So if you guessed it right, the solution for this is to put 2 different fields as trainer first name and trainer surname. That way we can easily analyze what the trainer's first name is, and there will be no issues when it comes to formats or entering data in a specific way. And it is also easier for us to refer to data. And then if we think about telephone, Well, in this case, they have only given one telephone for each trainer. So the solution for that would be we can put um, an input mask, we can put a format check. So input mask is actually the easiest method. And then if we look at email, this is the kind of tricky one. So now you could argue that because there are a few emails, we can put a few different fields, one for primary email and then secondary email and so on. But different trainers have different number of emails, and we don't know how many emails a certain trainer would have. So in this case, we will not be putting emails in the same table. We will not be keeping this email field in the table trainer. We'll put it into a different table, and we'll make it a one-to-many relationship, right? Because one trainer has a few emails and we have no idea how many emails a certain trainer has. So in that case, we'll create a new table called table trainer email, and in that we'll put a primary key called email ID. So that ID can be auto number or anything, and then we'll put a second field called which will be trainer ID. So trainer ID is the primary key of table trainer, and it will act as a foreign key in the table trainer email. And then our third field would be primary ID, right? And in this case, when you write that the third field would be primary ID, you should also so in this case, she'll always be contacting the trainers using emails and their telephone numbers. So make sure that you mention that the primary email should have a presence check where it cannot be null. So in my validation video, I explained to you how that can be done, presence check. You should put it as is not, the validation rule will be is not null. And the validation text, you can put this field must be entered or anything like that. So therefore, the primary email will always be there and she can email her trainers whenever she wants to. And then oh wait, we cannot do that. Why can't we do that? Because again, it will be the same problem that we had when we made the table trainer, right? We can't put primary ID and then secondary ID and so on because we don't know how many emails a certain person has. So in that case, we'll be putting just email, and then we'll also be putting a presence check there. And then in the fourth field, we'll be putting a field called something like, is this primary email? Something like that. And then that will be an yes no field where they can tick whether it is their primary email or not. So that way, as the organization, we can see the primary email of each trainer. I hope you guys understood what I was trying to say. And then telephone, well, because it's one telephone for each trainer, we don't have to take it to a separate table, but we'll have to put a presence check and also length check. But it will be much better to put an input mask because it can specify the type of characters that can be entered and also the length. So input mask would be easier. So that's basically what you should write. So if we go through the things that you should write again, first of all, the trainer name. In the same table, you can put two new fields called. So also when you write your answer, do refer to specific tables and table names. So it's as if you are actually creating a new table, but you're not doing it. It's like a hypothetical scenario in your head. So for example, you can start off saying, when you refer to the trainer name field, all the names have not been entered into the same format. So when it comes to referring to a trainer's first name, we can get confused. Therefore, the solution that we can come up with is putting two different fields as trainer first name and trainer surname. And it will be so your answer will be more structured if you put double quotes for the table names and field names. And now continuing the answer. So we will put two different fields called first name and surname. So this way we can make sure that we can easily identify what the trainer's first name is. And also we can put a presence check to the trainer's first name because we'll be referring to that. So that will be about your solution for trainer name. And then you move on to email. When considering the email field in table trainer, we can see that one trainer has more than one email, has many email addresses. And in some trainers, we can identify what the primary email is, but for some trainers, we cannot. Also, some trainers have not entered emails, but different types of links as well. So in that case, the solution we can give to this is creating another table for emails separately. And then we will have to put in 4 fields. So the field names would be email ID. So the table name of the new table we are creating is table trainer email. So the primary key of this table would be email ID, and then the second field would be trainer ID, and this trainer ID is acting as a foreign key as it is the primary key of table trainer, and this would be a one-to-many relationship. And then in the third field we can and put a field named email, and in this field we can do a presence check. Also we can do a validation for the format. So that also we can use input mask. And then we can put a fourth field saying is it primary email, and make it a yes no field where the data administrator can tick whether it is the primary ID or not, so that whenever they want to send emails, they can easily see which trainer's primary ID it is. So then that's your solution for emails. Then you move on to the telephone part, which is when you consider telephones, telephone numbers, some telephone numbers have more than 10 characters, some telephone numbers are not entered. So for the telephone field, we can use a presence check where it is a must to enter their telephone number, and also a format check and also a length check where it should be limited to 10 characters. And yeah, that is basically your answer for this 9 marker. I hope you guys understood, especially this email part. It's a bit tricky. So if you didn't understand, please do comment down below and I'll try to explain in the next video. But I hope you were able to picture it in your head. And also, just because you write this answer doesn't mean that you actually have to create a new table and do these changes to your table. Don't do that. It's a waste of time and it will kind of mess up the rest of the questions that you're going to do in the paper. All right. So right now, how I told you guys the answer was telling you the problem, then a solution, again a problem, and then a solution. But I prefer if you could first give out all the problems that you have. So, for example, in trainer name, this is the problem we have, and then just the problem in trainer name. And then in when you consider email, this is the problem we have there. And then in telephone, we have this issue. And now, how do we change this and make this something better? First off, if we start from trainer name, and then you can continue with your answer, giving your recommendations and what changes should be done to your table. So that looks a bit more structured and feels more appealing to read. So that's it for today's video. So we are done with the first question completely. Next, I'll be looking into the reports. So the report design is pretty confusing. Rather than confusing, it's also very time consuming. So hope to bring that up next week within the next video. Thank you guys for watching this video. And if you haven't watched the previous one, please watch that as well. See you.